Start.
Yes, sir. We are live.
Okay. Good evening, friends. It's my great pleasure to be here with you this evening and to welcome you all to this Club Premier meet number 089. Just one shot of 90 and 11 shot of the magical figure of 100. Yeah. With the great support and great enthusiasm from all the participants of Club Premier, we are able to spearhead even these tough corona times with regular meetings on the fourth Wednesday of every month. It may be difficult for us to meet in person, to share our views personally and have good food and be done with that. But this virtual platform has its own benefits. You are able to get speakers from across the state, across the country, across the borders, and your audience also. It's not limited to Dindigul alone. It comes from everyone. It comes from everywhere. So that's another good thing with these virtual meetings. But here, I have to record with a very heavy heart. We are losing many of our colleagues to this second wave of corona pandemic. It's really going so fast. We are not able to withstand it. We are always, it's like walking on fire for many of us who are practicing. Still, we are putting with that. And here, even then, we are now going ahead with our learning process to keep ourselves updated, to come out of the misery of COVID patients. So this is again a platform where you can enrich yourself, your mind, you can relax a bit, listen to good people talking. The highlight of today is we're having such an excellent clinician and a passionate teacher in Dr. Nemanathan sir. He is with us now. It's so lovely when he informed me that our own member, Dr. Anbu Selvan, Dr. Shivakumar, our JD, and Dr. Gandhimati madam, they're all his classmates. It was so nice to hear from him. And I talked to all three of them, and they also promised to join this program. A few words about our previous meeting. Our welcome session is 089. I welcome you all from the bottom of my heart. Our chairman, Dr. M.V. Chandrasekharan sir, is with me, and Muralidharan, our finance secretary, and all the members of Club Mail. We all heartily welcome you to this meeting. Our last meeting was the second wave of COVID. How is it different? And it was done exceptionally well by our own member, Dr. Karuswamy Prakash, as a pulmonologist at St. Joseph's Hospital. It was very, very well attended. The moderator for that was Dr. Sandana Kumar, the anesthetist, and our own member. So meeting went on very well. It was well attended. A lot of questions were there. So this is our theme: quit smoking, safeguard your lungs, safeguard your life. It's not too late. Should always, this aim of the Club Mail when it started was to safeguard our lungs. And we all know about smoking health risk. Smoking is one habit which kills not only the lungs, the heart, but every part in the body is being affected by smoking. We know about it. Whenever a patient or whenever a smoker comes to you, spend at least 2 minutes of your quality time telling him to stop, to quit smoking. Only with repeated cajoling can you make him stop smoking. Because stopping smoking is much better than your statins, your ACE inhibitors, your Ranpil and whatnot, all your aspirin and smoking. This one thing and word of good, we'll never forget it. So stop smoking health is, we know about it. We should motivate our patients to stop smoking. And today's session is 089. What an excellent speaker. Topic is Pearls on Pediatric COVID from CEC. CEC is Center for Excellence in Childhood COVID. This is rather a continuation from our last meeting. It was how the second wave is different from first wave, done by Dr. Karuswamy Prakash. In that, he mentioned a few words about how children are getting more affected. Then the thought occurred to me, why don't we get a good pediatrician to talk to us? And who better man can we get than our own speaker, Dr. Nemanathan sir's wide experience, a beautiful hospital there in Coimbatore, which is dedicated Center of Excellence for Pediatric Care. It's not new to us. He's come to Dindigul so many times. When Dr. Murli, Dr. Dhanraj, and I were at the Dindigul IMA, President, Chairman, and Finance Secretary, they come there to visit us and gave talks. And even the time of dengue fever, he did a great service. He did a lot of research he did in dengue. He has come to Dindigul IMA at that time, given talks on dengue, which we can never forget. So I remembered him, and yes, when I invited him, he readily agreed without any hesitation. He told, "I'll be there, Shekhar. Don't worry." That was discerning words. He's a pediatrician. He's the founder, Coimbatore Child Trust Hospital, Coimbatore. Is the past National Executive Committee member of the IAP India chapter. Is the state vice president of IAP Tamil Nadu chapter. IMA CGP Infectious Diseases Certificate Course Coordinator and WHO Sentinel Doctor. He's got more than 100 publications to his credit, and he's doing all those things more than anything else. He's a passionate teacher, and he never hesitates even a moment to teach whatever he knows for the benefit of all, sir. Very happy to have you with us, sir.
Thank you.
Our,
Thank you, sir.
Our moderator Vinod Kumar is yet to come. Probably we'll have him for the finishing comments. I'll give you a brief introduction of the topic. We know pediatric COVID. Last time when Dr. Sarath Balaji talked on asthma in children in the way back in October 2020, I asked the question to him, sir, what's the experience in pediatrics in COVID? He just with a chuckle and told, sir, boss, we don't get questions of it does hardly any harm to the people. There was a status in October 2020, but now things are so different. How it is different? How it's going to affect when our own children are getting affected? We know, we are very sure that many of our colleagues we have lost in the second wave. Very of our close friends, our relations, nobody in the world is untouched by this second wave of COVID, which is so cruel. So to know more about it, we invite Naman sir. Once sir finishes his his talk, I'll ask Vinod, Leon Vinod to give us finishing comments. Then our finance secretary, Muralidharan, will give us a vote of thanks. And after that, we'll proceed to the questions. Colleagues and friends, any questions you got, any comments you got, you can always post in the message box. We'll read it to the speaker and he'll be answering all your questions without doubt. So we are going to have a great session. I welcome all of you once again. I thank Lupin Respect Division for offering such a very nice webinar. I thank them once again. And now I hand over the mic to Dr. Naman sir. Welcome, sir. The stage is yours now.
Thank you, Dr. Sekhar. Am I visible?
Yeah, you are visible and you are audible.
Slides audible?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Slides are yet to come, sir. Slides will have to.
From my side, it's showing.
It's visible.
It's visible?
Yeah, visible.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Mute the mic. Yes, sir. Visible, sir.
Yeah. Good.
But I'm able to see only my slide. Should I stop sharing my slide, my screen?
Yeah. Please stop sharing yours.
But still, I'm getting only my slide. Hashish, how do you remove? Wow. Okay. Yeah. Now, yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. Good evening, friends. At the outset, I'd like to thank Club Pulmonale for inviting me for this wonderful session on pediatric COVID. Friends, I should appreciate Dr. Sekhar. I know him for the past couple of more than 15 years. Very academically shrewd person. Very always on the toes. Whether it is medicine or medicine related to life topics like Vallalar, is an all-rounder. I really appreciate him in a big way because it's very hard to have academic persons in a smaller place. They got with lots of difficulties, with limitations. He's doing a wonderful job. Yeah, I would say that if I were in his place like Dindigul, I wouldn't have done like this. He has excelled than me. I really appreciate you, Sekhar.
Thank you so much, sir.
My appreciation to all the office bearers of Club Pulmonale. Dindigul is close to my heart because my mother's native place is near Vedasandur.
Oh.
So I did my first few standards studies up to 5th standard in a village called Tevinaikkambatti near Dindigul.
Yeah.
So Dindigul is my another native place. So I'm really close to Dindigul very much. I got lots of friends in Dindigul because I studied undergraduate, post-graduation, Madurai Medical College. So I had many friends in Dindigul. So Dindigul is two ways it's close to my heart. I'm really happy. Let's start the meeting. I'm going to give you the evidence-based guidelines about the the present new wave that's happening. We call it a second wave. Friends, please remember this being coronavirus being a pandemic virus belonging to RNA virus family. These viruses tend to come in waves. They come as first wave. Luckily, India escaped. The second wave, there is no escape. We are in the middle of second wave, and we are going to face a third wave and fourth wave. What has happened to other countries? So it's the right time as doctors. We need to step in, and then we need to overcome the second wave, and then I'll guide you how to predict the third wave and how to overcome that third wave also. I'll talk about this during my lecture. Friends, if you look at the incidence of pediatric cases, in the first wave it was only 4 to 5%. In the second wave, fortunately there was only 1% increase, right? 5 to 6%. But since the total population involved in the second wave is nearly 5 times that of the first wave, since the total population is more, the number of pediatric cases is also more. That's the reason for the number of more pediatric cases in the second wave. And as predicted, the third wave, it's very highly difficult to predict the timing and the percentage of affection. But as of the prediction at present, it will be around 25%. But this 25% can be brought down to 0.25% by the help of all the doctors who are attending this meeting. I'll tell you how you can reduce it to nearly 0.25%. Whenever there is an epidemic or a pandemic for diseases like pertussis or diphtheria, usually we have seen that there is an increasing trend of the age of infection. Diphtheria and pertussis were disease of younger children. Gradually it went on to older children, adolescents, adults. Whereas this COVID infection has a downward trend. If you know, last year it was around 65 years, then gradually came to 50, 40, 30. Now it is around 20. So maybe in the upcoming years, it's going to be less than 18 years. I'll tell you the scientific reason behind that also. The incubation period has shortened grossly. What was around 4 to 5 days earlier, the mean incubation period has grossly shortened to 1 to 2 days. That is, we are getting sick persons on the second day of illness. That's very, very important. And the positivity is more. By positivity, I mean the number of samples you get positive for every 100 tests you do. So if you want to control the pandemic, as per WHO words, it has to be, the positivity rate has to be less than 5. Unfortunately, in Coimbatore, it is more than 30. So it is highly infective. If one person gets the infection, the family, everyone gets in the infection. So that's the state of affairs at present. And majority of the infected children are symptomatic, and atypical presentations are more. They don't come to you with an adult-like presentation. Adults, it's a respiratory virus. They come to you with sore throat, cough, fever, whereas children comes with atypical presentation. And the severity of the disease is also more so in the adults, particularly in children. Children with comorbidities tend to have a higher, severe the disease. And the admissions have been more because the mutants that have come into the play have evaded immunity, and even post-vaccination persons are also getting this disease because of the immunity evasion nature of the mutants. And particularly in children, we are going to face a dreaded complication called multi-system inflammatory syndrome in children related to COVID. That's called MIS-C. I'm going to tell you about the present incidence is around 1 per 1 lakh. So there is going to be a sudden increase in MIS-C in future next 8 weeks. I'm going to tell you reason out why and how to prepare ourselves. Friends, always remember there is always a end at the light at the end of the tunnel. This pandemic, second pandemic, is mainly because of the pandemic fatigue and complacency in the public, and also fatigueness in the medical field. So we are closely following what is happening to Maharashtra and Bangalore. That's our trend. Please remember, you cannot achieve herd immunity by a single wave or second wave. We will be having third wave and fourth wave. We are closely following 8 months behind US, UK, and Europe. So whatever happened to all these three countries, we'll be having it in a couple of few months more. The third zero prevalence study that was done in February said that 30% of the people had a positivity. In other words, still 70% of the people are vulnerable to the disease. That means we have a long way to go. And the newer variants create new problems. Another important thing is 50% of the Tamil Nadu population is living in rural areas. Please remember, next wave is going to be a wave of villages, number one, and it's going to be a wave of children below 18 years. So we have to prepare ourselves to face the imminent problem. And if you take steps now, we can save the our country, our state, and our own people. So let's see about some of the interesting cases that we have seen over the past 15 months. In the last 15 months, I have seen more than 1,000 COVID positive children. Fortunately, among them, only 50 got admitted. That is, only 5% got admitted. And among them, less than 1%, 10 children got admitted in the PICU. We have separate PICU for COVID positive children, and also we have got separate PICU for COVID negative post-COVID complication like MIS-C. So altogether, we had only 10 cases, and all the 1,000 survived. So basically, the first thing I want to tell to all the doctors who are attending this meeting, basically, pediatric COVID can be 100% successful. It is the knowledge that is going to save your children. So I am going to provide you with the adequate knowledge. Here you have a 6-year-old child who came with mild cough, cold, and a low-grade fever less than 99. Child is active, playful, taking food well, passing urination well, sleeping, and that is a history of contact with a close relative who had a positive result. And looking at the family background, they had a small bedroom, all 4 members in the family along with the child. They were living in a single bedroom house, and they had 2 grandparents at home. So this family, with such a setting, what should you do? Should I test the child? The child seems to have a minor viral URI. In a situation when there is no pandemic, I will always say, do not do tests, do not give medicine. But the pandemic is rampant, and the family setting, the house setting, they have got only 1 bedroom wherein the grandparents live with the child. And there are elderly are at risk. So in such a setting, the answer to this is, yes, you should do tests, because COVID cannot be distinguished from a normal URI and LRI. The test done to children or to protect the family members. So you got a secondary gain. More, as I told you, vast majority of the children, though they have a disease, they will come out without any morbidity or mortality. Nature will cure them. 95% do not need any investigation, no drugs, no admission. Just with observation, they become all right. The test is done to protect the family members, particularly elders in the family. If you don't do the test, if you allow the child to be at home, the elders will be at high risk and the mortality will be very high. So in such a child, you need to do home isolation. Home isolation is that you need to isolate the child separately along with the mother in the house, and the child has to take proper rest, and then the normal food has to be given. Now, with an additional extra meal per day, if the child is receiving 3 meals per day, you reduce the timing. Every 4 hours, you give 1 meal. Let it be 4 meals per day. And please continue breastfeeding. And hydration is very, very important in COVID, because the more you hydrate the child, less will be the severity of the disease. You need to use ORS, preferably reduced ORS, not the adult ORS. If you use adult ORS, they will end up in hypernatremia. Please use the reduced ORS. And the dose of ORS in children is 60 ml per hour. If the child is awake for 6 hours or 10 hours, you need to give around 600 ml per day. No drugs and no tests. Please remember this mantra called no drug, no test. And never use AC. Please keep your house well ventilated. Open your windows, and there should be aeration that's coming inside and going out. If you ventilate the house, the incidence of spreading within the house will be less. Masks are used for children above 5 years, and you have to educate them to use the mask properly. And once you train them, most of the time the children who wear masks will be securities of our house. They will not allow us to mingle without mask. So they will take control of all of us in the house. So masking the children is two benefits. One is you protect them, and also they will make sure that everybody in the house does masking. And pulse oximetry is a very, very important tool. It has to be done in children about 2 years of age. Less than 2 years, clinically you monitor the child, educate the mother how to monitor the child about breathing difficulty and feeding difficulty. And the pulse oximetry has to be done for a period of 1 minute. If they just keep it in the hand, and if the pulse oximeter is a larger size, you will get an erratic reading. So they had to buy a pediatric pulse oximeter for children below 5 years and adult for above 5 years. And it has to be taken for 1 full minute, like you take a pulse and respiratory rate. And another important thing which you have to educate every mother whom you see them in the OP is warning signs. I'll tell you warning signs what are there in the next slide. So counseling is a very, very essential part in the home management. You need to train the parents, particularly the mother, and you need to give them a monitoring chart. Monitoring chart should contain the temperature, respiratory rate, pulse rate, and they have to maintain the SpO2, they have to maintain the diet intake and urine output. These 6 things they need to monitor 3 times a day, 8 a.m., 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. This monitoring has to be reported to you over a phone, through WhatsApp, or your staff should monitor them. And the fast breathing and SpO2 are 2 criteria to delineate between mild and moderate disease. If they have got symptoms and there is no fast breathing, if the SpO2 is above 94, it is called as mild. If the SpO2 is less than 94, between 90 to 94, and there is a rapid breathing called tachypnea, then they automatically, even mild symptoms, they become moderate case. They are a candidate. If the moderate case is a candidate for admission. For fast breathing for general practitioners, please take these 4 numbers. If the child is less than 2 months, it's more than 60 is a fast breathing. 2 to 12 months, it is more than 50. 1 to 5 years, it is more than 40. Any child above 5 years, any respiratory rate more than 30 is a tachypnea or a fast breathing. If there is a tachypnea with a fever in a child suspected with COVID, it is probably child has got evolving pneumonia. So SpO2 has to be checked for more than a minute, and then mother should be educated. Tell every mother to go to YouTube and see how to take SpO2 for children. And general red flag signs or warning signs, you need to educate every mother. Please write it in Tamil and then ask them to read in Tamil and then go home, or take a picture of that. For you to easily remember, think of 6 organ systems in the body. Number 1, CNS involvement. I'm going to சொல்லும்போது, does the child have excessive irritability? சின்ன குழந்தையா இருக்கு, 9 அழுதுகிட்டே இருக்கு. இல்ல பெரிய குழந்தையா இருக்கு, எப்பவும் தூக்கமா வருதுமா, சோர்ந்தாப்லயே இருக்கு, somnolence, தூங்கிட்டே இருக்குது அப்படின்னா, it's a sign of CNS involvement. So excessive irritability or excessive drowsiness. Then CVS. How can the mother check the CVS? It's very simple. You tell her to put her 2 hands on, one on the chest, one on the feet, and see the difference between the temperature on the body and the feet. If the feet and hands are cold, peripheries are cold, CVS is involved. If the hands and feet are cold, just ask her to elevate the limb above the heart level and press the palm with the mother's thumb for a few seconds and take it off. If the blanched area becomes pink within 3 seconds, the capillary refill time is normal. Just educate her to see for cold peripheries and look for capillary refill time. If the CRT is beyond 3 seconds and the peripheries are cold, cardiovascular system is involved. Number 3, respiratory. Respiratory is very, very simple. If there is a tachypnea, or if there is a dyspnea, or there is a subcostal or intercostal retractions, or there is a cyanosis or a grunt, respiratory system is involved. Tell her about these 5 things and then educate her and tell her. If there is one among them, they have to report back. Then coming to the GA, abdominal pain, vomiting, diarrhea. Sudden appearance of abdominal pain, even without fever, is a dangerous hallmark of a dangerous warning sign. So these 3 signs regarding GA you have to tell. The last but one is renal. Normal GFR in children is 1 ml per kg per hour. For example, a 10 kg child should pass 60 ml every 6 hours. So tell her if the child doesn't pass urine for more than 12 hours or passing less amount of urine, they have to come back. And the last one is skin and mucocutaneous junction. If there is a non-purulent bilateral conjunctivitis, or there is a skin rash, or there is some vesicles on the foot, it could be a manifestation of a COVID, they have to come back. These systems, 6 systems, CNS, CVS, RS, GI, renal, and skin. If you tell them the red flag signs, you write it in black and white, தமிழ்லயே எழுதி அவங்க அந்த 6 சிஸ்டமே படிச்சுட்டு போட்டோ எடுத்துட்டு இதுல ஏதாச்சும் ஒன்று இருந்துச்சுன்னா மிட் நைட் அதால் வந்துருங்கன்னு சொன்னீங்கன்னா you will reduce the mortality to 0. Not only with COVID, with any other disease like flu or dengue. Danger signs are very, very important. Education to the public about danger signs is very, very important. Tell them it is not the fever that is important, it's the signs and symptoms that's important. So sometimes the signs may arise even after the disappearance of fever. So you educate them that fever per se is not a disease. Fever is a manifestation of underlying disease. Fever is a protective mechanism. Signs, appearance of danger signs is a dangerous situation. They have to come back immediately. So here you have a 2-year-old child, sudden onset of abdominal pain, vomiting, watery stools. Child had a skin rash, red eyes, and the fever is only less than 98. It's only very, very mild, which was perceived by the mother as fever, but on documentation there was no fever. The mother gave the history of travel to shopping complex, AC complex 4 days back. So these type of situations are very common in our day-to-day practice. The question is, could it be COVID? The answer is yes. At present, it could be 100% COVID because the atypical presentation of COVID, particularly in children, is more. In our center, our records shows around 10 to 20% of children out of these 1,000 children had AGE-like presentation. And around nearly 3 to 5% had skin and eye mucocutaneous lesions. And then various presentation we have seen over the 1 year. We have seen febrile seizures, children with the sudden onset of first episode of nephrotic syndrome, children presented to us with DKA. Many children came with intussusception. Many children came with appendicitis, which we could manage conservatively. And we had children with demyelination, dysarthria, hyponatremia, and other related diseases were also on the high. For example, not related to COVID, because many of them are using this pulse oximeter. This battery injection is very high. Normally, we used to get 2 battery injections per month because we have a 24 hours gastroenterology division, pediatric gastroenterology division. We do scopy and take it out. Now we are seeing nearly 3 times. That is, we get around 6 cases per month. There is a sudden spurt in this battery injection in our center. So please remember, these atypical presentation are due to the presence of ACE2 receptors in GI tract and other places other than the respiratory in children. So that's why you don't get more of respiratory symptoms in children. We get non-respiratoriness because of the ACE2 receptors. So you must know in your practice whom to test. Ideally, all suspect who have got exposure to COVID should be done. But in practice, it is very difficult for various reasons. One, you may be practicing in a small village near Dindukal, or you may not have the facility to do RT-PCR daily, do it day in and day out, or the patient may not have the shell out that much of money. So in such situations, you prioritize. If you hospitalize a child for any reason, you do a RT-PCR, or there is an emergency surgery, never take it without RT-PCR. At this point, I want to tell you, do not do any elective surgeries because we should save O2 for treating the senior adults. If the resources are scarce, for example, if the 4 members adults in the family are having positive, you need not do tests for this child because you can assume the child has got COVID and then isolate the child and observe. As I told you, pediatric COVID, vast majority do not need treatment. So if you want to define a test should be done only if the results of the test will change the line of management. In pediatrics, even if you do the test, if the test becomes positive, your line of management is going to be very simple. Without drugs, without tests, you are going to isolate the child and treat. The same thing can be done to save the resources. If there are 4 members in the family having COVID, if the child develops a symptom, you need not test, just clinically make it as COVID and then isolate the child, observe the child. Saving each one test will save the money for the government. And if you have a child with comorbidities, there are around 10 comorbidities which you must all know. They are, one is obesity, the child has got wheeze or any COPD like symptoms, older children, or they got cardiac congenital heart disease, cyanotic heart disease, or they are on any drugs. Children with renal disease like nephrotic syndrome or steroids, children with liver disorders, children with neurological disorders, children with hemoglobinopathies, children with leukemia, children with myeloproliferative disorders, children with HIV. All these 10 conditions are comorbidities. Even if they have got mild symptoms, you have to test them, you have to admit them. So please remember, if there is a strong history of contact and there is a clinical suspicion, you treat the child as COVID even if the RT-PCR is negative. So your clinical judgment is superior than the lab report. So you must know there is an ICMR has given a procedure to do rapid antigen test that is marketed by MyLab. It is a point of care test. You can do it in your ER or in places where you have limited resources. If you are practicing in a place like Tadikombu near Dindukal, you can have this rapid antigen test. It's a highly specific test. If it is positive, it is positive. And it has a low sensitivity, it's only 50% sensitivity. If it is negative, you need to repeat it with confirm it with RT-PCR. This test is so rapid, within 15 minutes you can get it. Your own staff nurse can, with the proper PPE mask, she can take the test and then do it, give the answer within 50 minutes. So every child who comes with fever or vague symptoms, you can think of COVID and then you can do this RAT to confirm in peripheries or in your primary health center or in remote centers, you can do this. But gold standard is RT-PCR, which you have to do by nasopharyngeal swab. And the results, as you know, 30% false negative. Even if one test is negative, if you still have a strong suspicion, repeat it after 3 days. Even after 3 days, second test also negative. If you have a clinical suspicion, please go ahead and treat it as COVID. So do not leave the patient alone or let them go outside with the disease, even if the test is negative. So on your clinical judgment, you can treat. So please remember, mutants does not alter the RT-PCR positivity. And small hospitals which has got around a bed strength of 20 to 50 can have TrueNat or Expert that can be used for rapid tests. It's also RT-PCR. You will get the results within 2 hours. It's worth investing. You can reduce the expense of the government that is spending for each patient. And as I told you, in pediatrics, CT scan should be avoided. It should not be used as a diagnostic tool. Whereas some adult physicians do it for a diagnostic tool. If the RT-PCR is negative, they do CT scan. In pediatrics, it should be avoided. And please remember, once RT-PCR becomes positive, that means the virus is there inside the body. They will eliminate the virus within 14 days, but the RT-PCR will remain positive for 90 days because a dead virus, the remnants of the dead virus inside the body will test as positive. So for 90 days, it will be positive. The patient will not have the virus, but it will be positive. Never repeat an RT-PCR to say the patient is completely cured. With the time, they will get cured. Clinical classification you have, like with any other disease, you got mild one with mild minimal symptoms, no tachypnea, no hypoxemia. A moderate is symptoms are minimal, but the child has got tachypnea age appropriate and hypoxia between 90 to 94. Severe is a disease which we pediatricians are very highly concerned. Now, at the end of the peak of second wave, we are getting lots of children with severe COVID positive, RT positive, severe illnesses to the tune of around 1%. Since our hospital is a referring hospital for 8 districts in the western zone, including we get cases from Kerala and Karnataka, we see lots of severe cases. Not because of the cases are more, it is because ours is a referral hospital. The incidence of pneumonia, children with SpO2 less than 90, children presenting us with grunt, retraction, lethargy, seizures, with severe dehydration and diarrhea. And many children brought to us with ARDS-like picture, short and life-threatening multi-organ dysfunction. And some of them had thrombotic events also. So in such a situation, I'll tell you how to go about in management. As I told you earlier, mild can be managed by general practitioners and doctors in the peripheries. Just do home isolation, educate the mother, give importance to the hydration, continue breastfeeding, no tests, no antibiotics, no treatment, they will become all right. Even if they got mild symptoms, if they got any of the 10 comorbidities, they have to get admitted. And the moderate has to be referred to a pediatric hospital. So normally we do only 6 tests. They are CBC, liver function test, renal function test, C-reactive protein, and XHS. XHS only if they got respiratory symptoms. Otherwise, 4 tests will be sufficient. And on based on a clinical correlation, you can repeat the test 48 to 72 hours. If the SpO2 is more than 94, just hydration, paracetamol is sufficient. I always tell the normal dose of paracetamol in a normal child is around 15 milligram per kg per dose, not to exceed more than 80 milligram per kg per day. In viral illnesses like COVID or dengue, because they are got hepatic predilection, please give at a lower dose of 10 milligram per kg per dose. Any SpO2 less than 94 needs oxygen on one hand and steroids on another hand. Please remember, do not give steroids for mild disease, even in adults. Once you start oxygen, please start steroids. And never start oxygen alone, never start steroids alone. The steroid which we use is dexamethasone because it has got anti-inflammatory action. The dose is 0.15 milligram per kg per day. It is given as IV and you should never exceed more than 6 milligram per day. It is given for a shorter period of 5 to 14 days. If the child becomes all right by around 5th day, 7th day, if you discharge, stop steroids and send them home. Never give them oral steroids to continue at home for a moderate case. And a severe case, as I told you, they have to be admitted in children's hospital where they got PICU. And you need to this battery of investigations. And if the child needs an oxygen, probably start with 2 liters of oxygen by nasal prongs. If it doesn't, the saturation doesn't improve beyond 92, you can go to high flow nasal concentration. Then you can go to CPAP, then non-invasive ventilation. Intubation so far in our admission, we have not done. And proning is very good, particularly in adolescent children, obese. And here, if the patient has got severe disease, you need to restrict the fluids because of syndrome of inappropriate secretion of diuretic. So you need to give only 2/3 of the daily requirement. And short IV steroids, you need to give IV antithrombotics, subcutaneous antithrombotics, antibiotics if you suspect secondary infection. When you treat this in this line, parallelly you have to treat the shock, you have to treat the ARDS, you need to treat the acute kidney injury. If there is a HLH, you need to treat it. Most of the children, younger children, less than 2 years, they do have cardiac involvement, particularly myocarditis or coronary involvement. You need to address that very seriously. So sometimes I do see, even today, just before starting the meeting at 8 o'clock, I saw one child referred from Kerala, that is near beyond Ooty, beyond Kodalur. There is they have referred the child to from that's a medical college. From there they refer to our center. That's a 18-year-old girl child who had COVID 3 weeks back. RT-PCR positive. She was admitted in the hospital. She became all right. Now for the past 4 days she has got high-grade fever. Now she has got a skin rash. Eyes are red. Both the eyes are red. There are some mucocutaneous junction lesions along the mouth, and she has got severe abdominal pain, watery diarrhea. So these were the symptoms that they refer to us. So we diagnose by the history and looking at the child, that is MIS-C, that is multisystem inflammatory syndrome in children. This is a very, very important slide. Please, I want everybody to focus on this. I'll take some more time to explain on this because MIS-C is a condition which we are going to face next 8 weeks. Because whenever there is a peak of wave, when the peak falls down, the number of pediatric cases recover, and after 2 to 6 weeks, we'll be getting more of this multisystem inflammatory syndrome, which needs PICU care. Please remember this in your practice, because a child who has recovered from the illness, if they come back to you within next 3 months, with a sudden onset of fever of 3 days with the following symptoms. Either a rash, macropapillary rash, evanescent rash, or urticarial rash. மேலாம் குடுத்து குடுத்தாப்புல இருக்குதுன்னு டாக்டர் அம்மையார் இருக்குன்னு சொல்லி ரேஷ்னு வந்தாங்கன்னா, or bilateral non-pulmonary conjunctivitis with abdominal pain or diarrhea or vomiting. Sometimes they got cold peripheries, the BP is low, hypotension or shock. If they got myocardial dysfunction in the form of myocarditis, pericarditis, valvulitis, or coronary abnormalities, or the elevated troponin T and NT-proBNP is elevated, or if they have got evidence of coagulopathy in the form of raised PT, APTT, D-dimer. If of these 5, there is any of the 2 are present along with fever of more than 3 days, particularly in children less than 2 years of age and children more than 12 years of age. You have to, first thing is you have to do ESR and CRP. If CRP is more than 6 and ESR is more than 40, probably you're dealing with multisystem inflammatory syndrome. First thing, you need to take a proper history. If there is a definite contact history, or if the RT-PCR or rapid antigen test or antibody is positive, and you have to rule out, MIS-C is a diagnosis of ruling out sepsis. So many of the septic illnesses can give a picture like MIS-C. For example, your typhus fever, for example, your severe malaria or a severe dengue, HLH following dengue, or septic shock syndromes following staphylococcal infection or streptococcal infection, or many diseases that involves DIC in septic shock, they can present like MIS-C. So it is, you have to, MIS-C is a diagnosis of exclusion. You have to rule out bacterial infection. Then with a positive COVID-19 positivity, if ESR and CRP is elevated, if the child has got more than 3 days of fever with any of the 2 findings, please keep MIS-C in back of your mind. And when you start your practice tomorrow, please give importance to the history and the clinical features. If you have any of these, please refer to a pediatrician, please refer to a center where the intensive care is there. Because in the next few months, we are going to see lots of MIS-C. So there are 2 tiers of tests. You need not do all tests for the given patient whenever you suspect MIS-C. MIS-C, there are 3 phenotypic arms in MIS-C. One is a mono system involved. They may have only abdomen symptoms. Their lab markers will be elevated. That's called hyperinflammatory syndrome with a mono system for which no treatment. They will become all right without any drugs. So you need to limit your test to every MIS-C patient. The first order test is CBC, CRP, ESR, RT-PCR with the IgM, IgG serology, liver function test, renal function test, electrolytes, random blood sugar, gas analysis, and to test the suspicion of co-infections like malaria or typhus or whatever you suspect. So these are the first tier investigations. If the first tier investigations are positive, for example, if the CRP is more than 5, ESR is more than 40, ALC less than 1000, there is a thrombocytopenia of less than 150,000, hyponatremia of less than 135, hypoalbuminemia and neutrophilia, you have to proceed to tier 2 investigations. Tier 2 investigations, one is marker, another is cardiac. In cardiac, ECG, echo, BNP and ClotT. In inflammatory markers, fibrinogen, LDH, ferritin, triglyceride, PT, APTT and D-dimer. I have left out procalcitonin and IL-6. Procalcitonin is a costly test that is not available in all centers. In our hospital, we don't do it because the benefit we get out of procalcitonin is very, very minimal. So we don't do it. IL-6 is also mainly research test. So for a general practitioner, for a pediatrician, IL-6 is a costly test. There is lots of erroneous results can come because it is basically, the results may vary with the technique of the procedure. So IL-6, normally we don't do it in our center. So in MIS-C, there are 2 arms. I told you there are 3 phenotypes. One is the inflammatory phenotype in which the results are, markers are high, the child is not sick. Just observation will do. Another is a Kawasaki phenotype in which the child has got coronary artery aneurysm, particularly in children less than 2 years. Another is a classical MIS-C, more than 12 years, in which they got severe multi-system involvement. So treatment is divided into two arms. One is the children's not in shock, not life-threatening. Just you can treat them with IVIG 2 gram per kg given over 48 hours. Because already we need to restrict the fluids, it is ideal to give 1 gram per kg on 2 consecutive days. And you should never give more than 100 grams per day. That's very, very important. Next is IV methylprednisolone. It's a lifesaver, 1 to 2 milligram per kg, and you should never give more than 1 gram per kg. These are all dictum. You should never exceed beyond the maximum dose. If IGIV is not available in your place, or if the patient cannot afford, you can just with methylprednisolone, you can manage them. Most of the recent studies say steroids alone will do better, equal results in MIS-C with mild MIS-C. So steroids have to be changed to oral, to Dexa or prednisolone after 3 to 5 days, 3 days of methylprednisolone, and it has to be tapered by 25% every week and stopped after 2 to 4 weeks. You must remember always, whenever you use steroids, you must know the prednisolone equivalent. 2 milligrams of prednisolone is equal to 0.8 milligram of dexamethasone. Aspirin is given in milder cases to avoid thrombotic events. It's given at 3 to 5 milligram per kg per day, not to exceed 81 milligram per day. It should be avoided if there is a bleeding manifestation or if there is a thrombocytopenia less than 80,000. Echo has to be done at 2 weeks and 6 weeks. If there is a coronary involvement, you need to continue echo regularly till the coronaries become all right. And along with that, you need to continue aspirin also. So in our center, we see lots of severe MIS-Cs with shock and life-threatening. In those situations, we give IVIG 2 gram per kg given over a period of 48 hours. And we give a higher dose of methylprednisolone at the dose of 10 to 30 milligram per kg per day. Aspirin we give at 3 to 5 milligram per kg weight. But this aspirin is a therapeutic dose. If there is a specific indication for that better drug, we go for low molecular weight heparin, enoxaparin. I'll tell you later. If there is no response by around 72 hours, in the textbooks they mentioned tocilizumab at the dose of 4 to 8 milligram per kg per dose, or a higher dose of anakinra, which is not available in our country, or infliximab. But fortunately, in our center, having treated many MIS-C, we have never used these 3 drugs. All of them show 100% improvement with IVIG, methylprednisolone, aspirin combination. So antithrombotics, you got 2 regimes. One is therapeutic, that is low molecular weight heparin, the enoxaparin. It is indicated only if there are 3 conditions. One, if there is a coronary aneurysm with a Z score of more than 10, or if there is a left ventricular ejection fraction is less than 35, or there is an evidence of thrombosis. Only if these 3, one among the 3 is positive, you use enoxaparin. The dose is less than 2 months, it's 1.5 milligram per kg per dose, given subcutaneously over 12 to every 12 hours. For children more than 2 months, it's 1 milligram per kg. So prophylactic is, I told you, it's aspirin. For children about 12 years, you need to wear stockings to reduce DVT. So if you have a children, they come back to you for follow. Please remember, never give non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug because the child is already on aspirin. I always ask the child to limit the exercise and strenuous activity at least for a period of 2 weeks because they can go in for post-exercise vasovagal hypertension and shock. There should be no live viral vaccines for the next 8 months if they receive IVIG. And you need to tell them if there is a recurrence of fever or any KD-like presentation, they need to come back for follow-up. That's very, very important. And you have to keep MIS-C mimics in your mind. Sometimes they have referred lots of children as MIS-C and found out to have dengue, severe dengue. Even now, we got in our ICU children with 3 children who have IgG COVID antibodies positive, strongly positive, but they have got all pictures of the severe dengue. The child has a severe dengue and the COVID is a bystander. It's just standing there inside, not doing any harm, but the harm is done by the dengue. please remember the normal diseases, seasonal monsoon diseases like dengue, typhoid remains the same. Always keep these things in the back of the mind. So severe Epstein-Barr infection can mimic MESI. As I told you, staphylococcal infection, by looking at the child, you can look at the mucocutaneous junctions involved, scaling, scalding, all these things will give you clinical clue it's staphylococcal. And streptococcal, by looking at the tongue and the nature of the skin rash, you can think about streptococcal infection. Typhus, if there is a splenomegaly, if there is a eosinopenia, there is a relative bradycardia, you can think of typhus and typhoid. And leptospirosis, of course, it's very difficult to manage, difficult diagnosed by clinically, but your laboratory test will give you a clue. So all these things you have to keep in back of the mind before you say it's MESI. Sometimes, because pediatrics and gynecology go hand in hand, sometimes we do get mothers who come positive within 14 days prior to delivery. If there is any mother who becomes positive within 14 days prior to delivery, then that mother is at a high risk of transmitting the illness to the neonate. So, is it an indication for LSCS? Please remember, there is no indication for a positive mother to be subject to LSCS. You have to conduct normal delivery, but the surgeon, everybody should take proper precaution. And you have to continue breastfeeding as usual, but the mother has to follow SOS, spacing, masking, and soap and sanitization. You have to test the neonate after 48 hours to 72 hours. If the test is negative, you have to repeat the test at the time of discharge. Both the mother and the baby can be kept at the same room, but 2 meters apart. The mother should always wear a N95 mask. Whenever she huddles the baby, she has to sanitize her hand. And then the bystander who takes care of the baby should be either who has received 2 doses of COVID vaccine or a youngster who has already had a COVID. That would be better a person to help the mother and the baby. So as of the FOGC recommendations, considering the pregnancy and lactation, morbidity and mortality associated with COVID, they have come out with a suggestion that the benefit of vaccinating pregnant mother, lactating mother outweighs the theoretical risk. The animal modules also have shown that there is no risk at present. So lactating mothers, if they are given vaccine, they additionally protect the baby by giving IgG and IgA antibodies through breast milk. And always, whenever you give vaccine for the pregnant mothers, avoid during the first trimester. You have to educate them with the knowledge and then get them an informed consent to give the vaccine. And your center has to be ready to tackle adverse emergencies. Sometimes you do have special situations. Can I vaccinate during menstruation? Yes, go ahead and do it. Pre-conception and during fertility treatment, the vaccine does not interfere with fertility. Please go ahead. And no need to do pregnancy test before vaccination. And as I told you, avoid during first trimester. Accidentally, if the mother has taken the vaccine, do not do medical termination of pregnancy because there is no increased risk of teratogenicity. After taking the vaccine, you need not postpone the pregnancy. And 2 questions which pediatricians commonly ask me: is there a role for CT scan? There is definitely no role for CT scan in pediatric COVID, and it should never be used as a diagnostic agent. Sometimes we do CT in 2 conditions. If you suspect a disease like tuberculosis in a child with COVID pneumonia, we do CT. Or whenever there is a doubt in abdominal ultrasound to find out appendicitis, we do abdominal CT to find out appendicitis. Most of the time, these appendix associated with COVID, they settle down with conservative management. So another CT what we use is cycle threshold value in RT-PCR. In pediatrics, it does not have any significance in identifying a severe disease. So there are some high risk situations. If the child is less than 2 months, or if the child is more than 12 years, the child has got comorbidity, or if the child has got elevated CRP at the time of admission, they are all at high risk situation. Sometimes we do have one family, everybody is negative, only the child is positive. And the reverse, everybody is positive, only the child is negative. These 2 situations, please remember, the child has to be isolated in the same house, preferably with the mother who wears N95 and follows SMS. And most important message you must know is you should never send the child to grandparents' house. நார்மலா நம்ம வீட்ல என்ன ஆகும்னா காய்ச்சல் வந்துச்சுன்னா தாத்தா பாட்டி வீட்டுக்கு அனுப்பிட்டோம்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. In COVID, never send them to Tata Pati house. If you send them there, the grandparents will be at a higher risk. So, what to use and what to not use to use. This is a very, very important message for all the doctors. In pediatrics, there is no use of azithromycin, doxycycline, vitamin C, zinc, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, favipiravir, remdesivir. So only 4 drugs that is important is one is hydration. I brought hydration as a drug because hydration is going to save vast majority of the children. Oxygen is a drug. Please remember that. Steroids have to be used cautiously. IVIG and antithrombotics. WHO says there is a strong evidence for use of steroids in severe disease, and there is a strong evidence for not to use steroids in mild disease. Many of the places, even on day 1, day 2, they go to medical shop, buy steroids and give it. Please, you have to stop using steroids in milder disease, and there is a strong evidence not to use remdesivir in any COVID disease. So please remember there are 2 trials. One is a solidarity trial, another is an ACT ACCT trial. Both involve lots of patients, more than 12,000 patients. There is no survival benefit even in adults. There is no reduction in ventilation or need of oxygen. There is a slight reduction in the length of hospital stay just by 1 day. So it has to be ideally used. The government has given authorization only in emergency use. It has to be used from 6th day to 10th day, not before 6th day and not after 10th day. Avoid it when the patient has got SGPT, SGOT that is nearly more than 5 times high, or the creatinine clearance is less than 30. In pediatrics, I have not used it so far. If at all, you use it only in 2 conditions. If there is a sudden deterioration, drop in the saturation, or if there is no improvement with normal conventional therapy, child is desaturating, you can use it for children below 40 kg, 5 milligram per kg on day 1, followed by 2.5 milligram per kg on day 2 to 5. If the child is more than 40 kilos, 200 on day 1 and 100 on day 2 to 5. Interferon and convalescent sera does not have any role in pediatric COVID. Antibiotics should never be used, and avoid antibiotics like போன்ல கூப்பிட்டு ஒரு சிறப்பு அஸ்திரால் வாங்கி சாப்பிடுமா அப்படி சொல்றதெல்லாம் ஸ்டாப் பண்ணிருங்க. They have got no role. There is no secondary bacterial infection in COVID. Please remember, it has to be used only in severe cases or in MIS-C when you suspect co-infection. And whenever you use antibiotics, take blood culture and use it. In an inpatient setup, use ceftriaxone. In outpatient setup, if you think co-infection, start co-amoxiclav. So some of the centers, when we suspect there is a toxemia or there is a community-acquired staphylococcal sepsis, we use vancomycin and add clindamycin to reduce the toxicity. So these are the questions which we face in vaccines. COVID vaccination has to be given 3 months after the full recovery from COVID, number 1. If you use IVIG or convalescent sera, any vaccination has to be deferred by around 12 weeks. So if somebody gets a COVID after the first dose, you have to give the second dose after 3 months from the recovery. And blood donation can be given 14 days after vaccination. And after COVID, when you have to do RT-PCR, only if it is negative, then you need to do donation. And there is no need for doing rapid antigen test before vaccination. Please remember, oxygen is a drug. When you use it, overuse it, it will harm the patient. It has got side effect like any other drug. Now it's a precious commodity. Please, I request every physician to follow WHO guidelines and our ICM or Tamil Nadu State Government Ministry of Health guidelines. We need to save oxygen. So coming to last 4 slides, the carry-home message. Children do far better than adults. The mortality in children is 1,000 times less than that of adults. And the testing of children is done to protect the elders, not to treat the child. Isolation has to be done along with the parents. Do not send them to grandparents. Please remember, other causes of fever remains the same. COVID could simply be a bystander. Always keep other diseases, seasonal diseases in your back of mind. Just because RT-PCR positive, don't think of COVID always. There are some other diseases that still are there in the society. Continue normal vaccinations. A drop in the vaccination will lead on to epidemic of vaccine preventable diseases. Some places where pertussis has been stopped, there is a resurgence of pertussis. So you have to continue normal vaccination. Hydration is a lifesaver. Please give reduced ORS 60 ml per hour. Treat COVID based on your clinical judgment, even if the RT-PCR is negative. And always practice reverse quarantine for elderly. If there is a child who becomes positive, take the child away from the elderly. Do not allow them to go to near elderly, because these children will be a silent transmitter of disease to elderly. And vast majority, it's a self-limiting disease. Please avoid polypharmacy, a list of drugs given to children who will recover without any drug. So nature cures vast majority of the children. COVID. Do not order any investigation, particularly in mild diseases. Sometimes you can see why it treated as being typhoid just because Vidal is false positive in COVID because of anamnestic reaction. 3 important no. One is no antibiotics, no remdesivir, no CT scan. After the recovery, restart vaccination as early as possible within 2 weeks after recovery. And please remember, if you want to prevent the third wave, you have to do 2 things. One is, if you vaccinate all the persons above 18 years of age, the children, that is around 30% of the population, will have cocoon protection. There is no virus in the adults. Automatically, children at home will be protected. So try to convince all the people above 18 years and vaccinate to save the third wave. And think of atypical presentation. If any child comes to you with GA or a skin or vague presentation like excessive tiredness or giddiness or palpitation or headache or loss of appetite or abdominal pain, reduce urination, you think of keep pediatric COVID in the back of the mind. Never miss a MIS-C, because there is going to be an impending surge in the next 8 weeks. If you pick up a MIS-C and refer them early, they can be 100% survive. And we have to be prepared for the worst pediatric third wave. And please remember, you have to be positive. We have to expect the best. And the only thing what we can do is, as I told you, 95% of the cases are going to be coming from the villages. You start an initiative called Village Integrated Patient Care, that is called VIP. I request all the doctors who attending the CME to start a small center in the village. Ask the Anganwadi worker or any village health nurse or somebody to be trained. You teach them about how to look at the 5 important things. Looking at the color of the child, respiratory rate, pulse rate, SpO2, vitals, particularly feeding, urine output, activities, sleep, play. If these for 5 are normal, you can manage vast majority of the children at village, and the health burden to the city will be less. And if at all, if they got comorbidities or develop moderate disease, they can be referred to a nearby taluk or a district hospital where you can save all the children. Thus, by starting a VIP program in all your villages, you can do it as a charity to help the government. We can win over the third wave. With that, I'd like to thank you all for the patient hearing. Thank you, Dr. Segar, for initiating this discussion. Thank you all. Any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Sure, sir. So it was a great talk, sir. It was superb. Right from the bedside, the clinics, which I've been a master always. I've seen so many times. You insist on clinical examination so much. Such simple 5 signs. You can ask them to talk to the Anganwadi workers also. If they are taught, you can save so many lives, sir. And from the simple clinical enforcement to all the exhaustive tests which I got to do in case of MIS-C, it's really threatening, sir. The MIS-C is really blood curdling. I don't know. And you predict it to happen next 4 to 8 weeks. God save us, sir. Anyway, we all be at the lookout, and we are always sensitized about that also. So we'll do our best, sir. And as you know, I'm in a village area, the place called Vadamadare. It's a very small village near Dindikal. And as I see in the past 15 days, even tribal people, remote villages, they are having COVID. And they come out much easier, much better than our town people who live, because they don't smoke, they work in the fields all the time, they recover very fastly. And these children, MIS-C is really alarming, sir. That we should always look out, and definitely will take up, sir. All the best is taken up so nicely, sir. It's an excellent talk, no doubt about it. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. And such a big center. We have courses from Middle College being referred to you. It's all wonderful. And with so much knowledge, you put it so simply also across the table, sir. We all loved it. Thank you so much for the nice presentation, sir. Actually, there are a lot of questions. Murli, you want to talk? What are thanks, Murli? Murli?
Probably he's held up. Leon is there?
Leon is not. I don't know. Some network problem.
Okay, probably they must have had some emergencies.
Yes,
okay,
sir.
it's okay. You can ask. You can yourself give the vote of thanks, and then we can go to the question answer session.
Thanks. I thank all the participants wholeheartedly for being such a great success. I thank sir. No words to thank him. Just now I told about how you excellently presented, sir. And I thank Lupin for sponsoring this meeting, and Harsh and team have done a wonderful job. I thank you once again. You've been part of all successful meetings. Thank you, Ashish. Thank you, Harsh. Sir, now we actually a lot of questions, sir. Vasanta always asked the D-dimer in a 13-year-old girl, 1100, otherwise normal. Due to do you give antithrombotics?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Almost all CMEs, I have faced the same question. The answer to this is D-dimer is there in the paper, and the patient does not have disease. Do not treat the paper, treat the patient. If the patient is fine, do not treat the lab report. So in such a situation wherein the lab reports are high, the child is normal, do not treat the child. So the message is always treat the patient, not the paper.
That's right, sir. And Dr. Kumar has asked, methylprednisolone is given as a single dose or in 2 divided doses, sir?
Methylprednisolone usually is given at a single dose. It's given as an infusion. So it has been given over a period of few hours. And then you should not exceed more than 100 grams per day. That's the most important message.
Sir, Velchami of Dindikal, our senior pediatrician, he has given a big kudos to you. Well done, sir. And as usual, you're top.
Actually, Velasamy sir is my role model. He's my senior and he's doing a very good practice in Dindikal. I always admire him.
Yes, sir. He's an important guiding force of Club Palmnail and has been arranging so many speakers for a clip from pediatric group has done, sir. This wonderful companion, sir. And he has asked you to stress the feeding of baby when the patient's COVID positive.
Thank you, sir. Definitely, I'll stress it, sir.
Okay, sir. Then TSM has asked alternative medicine for mild disease and post-COVID period. I don't know what he means.
Whether like Ayurveda, Siddha, homeopathy, like that. I think that's what he means by alternative disease. Actually, there is no drug is required. Nature itself will cure vast majority of the children with COVID. So if we give anything like Pundu or Perungayam, the credit will go to Pundu and Perungayam. So don't give anything. Because if you say something, then they will tell the doctor on the meeting, so always tell them the best vaccine that is available is called CAB. CAB, that is called COVID appropriate behavior. If you do this COVID appropriate behavior, it will be 100% safe, 100% no side effects, 100% cost free, 0 paisa. No rupees at all. COVID appropriate behavior. That is, if you wear a mask, you'll be 90% protected. If you have a social distance, if you wear a mask and stand 2 meters away, you'll be with the hand washing and sanitization, you'll be 100% protected. So masking, social distancing, and sanitization will give you 100% protection at 0 cost. No side effects and safe. That is the best drug I would advise. Not any other drug, because if you tell some drug, this one to boost up immunity, they will believe in that and they will not wear this one. So you have to always stress there is no drug, there is no food to prevent COVID.
And you also made it very clear. Please don't tell over the phone to give azithromycin syrup and all. Nothing. They are not at all indicated. If at all, give paracetamol, be done with it. And hydration is what you really stress again and again.
All these drugs, all these antibiotics will not increase the outcome. It will only increase the balance sheet of the company.
And hydration can be in the form of plain water or fruit juices or curd or buttermilk, or you need to give only
Yeah, they are all called homemade ORS. Like பருப்புல வந்து salt போட்டு கொடுக்கிறது, இளநீ, ஜீரக தண்ணி, or your மோர், இல்லாட்டி ஜபர்சி கஞ்சி, anything that is liquid that contains salt and sugar is a homemade ORS. So any liquid form you can give it, but it has to be, a child has to be adequately hydrated because there will be insensible water loss. This hydration is going to worsen the morbidity of the illness, because these are all cytokine related illnesses for which hydration plays a very, very important role.
That's true, sir. And that Nirmala has asked the role of budesonide nebulization in children.
Actually, there is no randomized controlled studies in budesonide in children, but there are some studies in adults. When you extrapolate to pediatrics, you can use budesonide when they have got respiratory illnesses at the dose of 100 microgram twice a day for a period of 5 to 7 days. In moderate illnesses, there is a respiratory symptom, and preferably most of the time these children do come out without any treatment. So there is a child who has got bronchospastic illness or hyperreactive airway disease or a known wheezer. In those conditions, you can use budesonide. The carrying message for the doctors who are attending this meeting: never do nebulizer in your clinic till the COVID is over, because nebulization is an aerosol generating procedure. If you do nebulization for children with wheeze or cough in your clinic, your sister and yourself will get high risk of getting COVID. So do not do nebulizer, do not use tongue depressor. Two important things which you should not use in your practice.
Okay, sir. And that Nirmala has asked when to start antibiotics in the inpatients.
Inpatients, ideally, the patient has got mild COVID illness and there is no evidence of clinical bacterial infections in the form of, for example, if you take an X-ray chest, there is no evidence of pneumonia, or there is no evidence of urine shows no pus cells, or there is no evidence of bacterial sepsis anywhere in the skin or in by your clinical examination. It is better to withhold the antibiotics, because secondary infection in COVID is extremely rare. Sometimes if you want to cover the child with antibiotics, if you cannot rule out whether it is COVID that is severe or along with bacterial, there is a co-infection, you can take a culture and then give third generation cephalosporin, ceftriaxone, preferably at the dose of 75 milligram per kg per day, 2 divided doses after test dose.
Okay, after test dose. Okay. And the Samasuram has asked, what's the normal range of D-dimer in pediatrics? What is the normal range of D-dimer?
Actually, D-dimer is a sign. It's around 250. But the important thing about D-dimer, it's a marker of a vasculitis. Vascular event that is going to happen will be predicted by D-dimer. But unfortunately, it is not specific to COVID alone. Suppose if you have a child with dengue, the D-dimer will be elevated. If you got a child with swine flu, D-dimer will be elevated. If you got a child with any other vasculitis causing organism, the D-dimer will be elevated. So it is not specific to dengue. Just because D-dimer alone is elevated, it's not an indication to start on therapeutic antithrombotics. So do not go by the lab report alone. That's a very, very important message. If you have a PT that is elevated and APTT that's elevated, along with the child who has got a severe disease, then you are justified in treating the child. Otherwise, just do not go by D-dimer alone.
Okay, sir. And Nirmala has asked, what's the duration of antithrombotics in children?
Normally, we give up for a period of 2 weeks.
Okay, sir. Can we vaccinate our children below 18 years? Any issues? By Vasanta.
Let me add to the previous question. Sorry, I just stopped at 2 weeks. Actually, aspirin normally we continue after discharge, after say 14 days, we continue up to 6 weeks aspirin at a dose of 1 milligram per kg weight for a period of 6 weeks. If the coronaries are abnormal, there is a coronary dilatation, we continue aspirin as long as the coronaries become all right. So we do repeated cardiologist evaluation, repeat echo, and then see when the coronaries come down to normal only, we stop aspirin. And coming to this question regarding vaccination, what is the question, sir?
Can we vaccinate our children below 18 years of age? Any issues?
Yeah. As of now, the government of India has not come out with vaccination for less than 18 years. Very soon we will be coming out with a 12 to 18 years schedule. So probably within the next 6 weeks we'll be getting 12 to 18 years permission from the Drug Controller of India. So once we get it, probably it is the Covaxin, it's going to come. Then there is also another trial that is going on for a nasal spray vaccine, live attenuated nasal spray vaccine. And this has got a good protective, good efficacy. It's a safe vaccine. It should not be given to pregnant mothers. It's a safe vaccine that is already it's going through phase 3 trial. Probably in the month of January 2022, you'll be getting that nasal spray vaccine. That will be from children about 2 years of age.
Fantastic. So, with your experience, can you predict which patient will develop severe COVID when there is no comorbidity? Question Dr. K. Somasundaram.
So actually, there is no good any predictor that the patient will develop MIS-C. But only thing is the incidence of MIS-C is very, very low, 1 in 1 lakh. So that's extremely rare. But only when the population, more children get COVID. For example, lakhs of children get COVID, the chances of getting MIS-C is very high. So though 1 in 1 lakh, if for example, if hundreds of lakhs of children are getting, the chances will become more. That's the thing. So there is no, as of I know, I don't have any predictor of a MIS-C. Maybe I have to see the literature and tell you. As of now, I don't know. But only thing is, all the MIS-C, if you pick it up clinically early, the outcome will be very good. So if you refer them late, if they come to us very sick in shock, hypertension, life-threatening, then it's very difficult to save. So if you, it is your knowledge that is going to save the patient. So if they have got any aberrant symptoms like fever beyond 3 days in a child who has had a contact 1 month back or 2 months back or 3 months back, or the RT-PCR is positive, after that they are getting a fever, or there is a skin rash or eye involvement or mucocutaneous lesions, or they got GE symptoms with fever of beyond 3 days, or their child is excessively tired, disproportionately sick, a child who has recovered from COVID, please refer to pediatrician, write your diagnosis or MIS-C. You should never miss a MIS-C. That's the most important message.
Very good. Excellent, sir. That's great, sir. Yes, sir. And your classmate, Dr. Anbusalon, has mentioned very nice presentation, Nemi, and vaccine for children in future. But that just now we answered, sir. Vaccine for children in future, just now we answered.
Thank you, Anbo.
Dr. Nataraj Ratnam, he was my classmate. He was professor of pediatrics in Mary Middle College. He has complimented you, sir, for a very good presentation. Yes, and
Nataraj Ratnam, sir, is my senior and he is also my role model. Very, very nice gem of a person, sir.
He's my classmate, sir, MBBS.
Oh, very good, sir. Very good, sir.
Very close to me. He has come and given talk in our club twice or thrice.
Very good, sir. Very good, sir.
Dr. Sampath also, Dr. Sampath Pediatrics, is also my classmate. Dr. Sampath and...
Sampath was my assistant professor.
Okay. So, Dr. Muralidharan is not able to join. He has appreciated you. The prevention of third wave, very good presentation. You have given a good social responsibility. Hats off to you, sir. So, then concluding note of the excellent job with this, we will cherish for a very long time, no doubt about it. Soon, we will get the recording and send it to you, and for the benefit of all of us, we will be posting it in the YouTube also.
Thank you so much, sir.
It's a great time. Thank you so much, sir.
Definitely, all the doctors who attended my meeting will join hands with me to start VAP. I consider all of you as VAPs. We should start VAP in your own village, native place, and then we should make sure that Tamil Nadu comes out best state in the country.
Fantastic, sir. I started right tomorrow at Vadamadrai. Vadamadrai VIP. Vadamadrai. Yeah.
Very good, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, sir. Great time, sir. Thank you.
Today, I had a discussion with Additional Secretary Dhanabal, sir, IAS officer.
Okay.
I have presented about VIP. So he'll be happy. I think he's also joined this meeting. I don't know whether he's inside the meeting or not.
Okay.
So he has said that the VIP is going to change, revolutionize Tamil Nadu. So we'll start, let Dindikal be the first persons to start VIP.
Sure, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice, sir.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you. How much is attendance? Any idea?
So I'll let you know, sir. Once she come out. Ashish, you are there now. Ashish?
Sir, around 50.
Total attendance first time.
So total attendance around 100 above, sir.
Okay.
100 above. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. You
We'll
can
do the
tell me
exact number
tomorrow.
as well.
Tomorrow you can tell. Thank you.
Yes, above 100.
Thank you. Thank you, Ashish.
Yes, sure,
Thank
sir.
you.
Yes,
Thank
sure.
you, Lupin.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Sekhar. Thank you, Club
Thank you.
Pulmonary.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Good night.
Should I end the session, sir?
Yeah. Good night.
Yeah, thank you, sir. You can end. Yeah. Good night. Good night. You can turn off, Ashish. Thank you.
Sir, I can end the session, sir?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, please. Yes, please. You can.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Good night, sir. all of you.
Good night.
Thank
Good night.
you.
Good night. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
Thanks, sir.